Welcome to Outdrive, folks. I'm your host, Cliff Callis, and each week I'm bringing you actionable marketing insights you can apply to reach, connect with, and convert rural American consumers. Outdrive is powered by Callis, a full-service advertising agency with a focus on marketing rural America. Callis offers a wide range of integrated marketing services, including website development, search engine marketing, social media, video, and digital. We develop strategic and creative campaigns to build your brand and your business, and you can learn more about us at ecallis.com. Now join me in the front seat as we head out on the road to success. Let's go. Hey folks, welcome to Outdrive. We've got another great story to share with you today about life and work in rural America. You know, I think it's really cool when a person's interests and hobbies turn into a real business enterprise. It's even better when you do it with other people who share the same passion for what you're doing. Anyone can start a business today, but growing a sustainable business takes vision, talent, some good fortune, and a lot of hard work. Our guest and our guest's business reflects all of these things. Mike Hammerly is a partner in a Missouri distillery named Phantom 5. An automation specialist by trade, Mike and his four partners got together a few years ago and started to build something special. They all had the interest in making spirits, but they all also had the experience and expertise to do it the right way, with a business plan and sound marketing strategy to make it a success. Over the past few years, they've developed a nice niche for inventive, delicious alcoholic drinks that people love. And while they're currently only available in 3 states, there are people from all over the country asking for Phantom 5 spirits. Listen in as Mike tells the story of how they got started, how they're growing organically, how they're figuring out the challenges of distribution, marketing, and growth, and how they've positioned themselves for a step to the next level. Welcome to Outdrive, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
I've been looking forward to visiting with you about lots of things. I think, when you talk about the distillery that you're a partner in, I think about surely every guy out there dreams of owning his own distillery, right? I just have to believe that's true. And so I want to talk about, how Phantom 5 came to be developed and, how you're marketing it and, maybe some of the challenges and opportunities you have in front of you. But, before we go down that road, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm born and raised in Sedalia, Missouri, lived here my whole life. My wife and I both have. She works for the Sedalia School District. We've been married for 30 plus years. I've been working for SMC for going on 36 years, and it's just one of those things that love the town, the community, and the area. And it's just always worked out well. And, that's probably a little bit about me.
Well, I always think it's great when that works out because, very few people can say that they've worked at the same career for 36 years straight. And I think that's impressive. And I think it says a lot about the person. I think it says a lot about the company that you work for. And I know that's SMC, who we're familiar with. And, so I know in life you wear at least 2 hats. There's probably more, but, I know that you're an automation specialist at SMC, but you're also a partner with Phantom 5. How do you balance those 2 responsibilities?
Well, at first, there's always that time you have to put in, in late nights and late hours and things like that. And as Phantom, we've managed to surround ourselves with a bunch of good people. So, we've added people to the staff. At one time we were doing all of it. All 5 partners were touching that alcohol by hand at some point. And then, as we grew, we started, getting employees and people that you wouldn't have expected to have interest, or people that just, it's amazing the interest levels that we've had from people and want to be a part of it. And we wish we could add more people a part of it. It's just, there's only so much can go around.
Sure. But as it grows, there'll be more opportunities, right?
Yes. And then the growth has been crazy for us. I might be skipping ahead of here a little bit, but, as far as Phantom, we started out just basically distributing ourselves once we got the product going. And then now we're working on our 3rd state right now. So we're growing.
So talk a little bit about the evolution, maybe the different stages that you've encountered over that time.
Like maybe going all the way back to how it started, period. I mean,
Yeah,
is that
let's
what you're
yeah,
kind of
actually,
thinking?
I think that's a great place to start. How did the idea for the distillery come about?
Well, I'll take you back to what I started doing was I'm kind of one of these guys that I'm always observing, always liking to tinker, always, wanting to learn something new. That's kind of part of my job on a daily basis. But in my hobbies and things, I probably got more hobbies than I could ever do. But what I started doing was in my basement, I had neighbors that were all making homemade wines. And we got to be talking wine connoisseur type guys that really taught me a lot. And then I decided I want to start making some wines at home. So then from there, I started making wines and I got the idea to start. I felt like they were fairly good. So I started entering them in an international wine competition. And there's like 3,000 people that competed in this. And right off the bat, I was winning bronze, golds, and silvers, depending on which category I entered. And one of my neighbors that really got me going with the wine, he kind of made the comment that the student passed up the teacher. So I felt, good that we kind of, always trying to learn. So from there, I started, just making wines. And so I had a coworker that from there, one of my coworkers asked me if I would help him make a bourbon. And I told him, well, I don't have a still, but I have all the fermentation equipment and I would, sure. He says, well, I'll look into buying one or something. And the story goes about a month later, he comes in and he goes, you won't believe this, but my dad and grandpa have a still down in the blown over barn on the farm. He said they could never make it work. And, me, I like to tinker. I said, well, let's go get it and see what we can do. So we got this old still and ended up, sure enough, it wouldn't even distill water. And so I asked them if I could operate on it. They said, sure, they could never make it work. So we operated on it, got it working. Right off the bat, I thought, well, let's take some of my old wines that I wouldn't necessarily give to friends or something that I didn't feel was quality. So we put that wine in there and distilled that alcohol off of it. And at first we kind of thought, oh my gosh, we got a leak in it. And it was 165 of the smoothest proof straight white alcohol coming off there. And so that's kind of where that all started. And then from there, I started experimenting with different types of fruits. I didn't want to go down the grain path because of the complexity of doing the grains and the mashes. And so I started experimenting with apple and realized that the apple would marry with flavors. And that kind of comes from, I like to cook a lot and learning that with things you could do with applesauce. So I thought, well, that should work. And so then the Apple base become the base of what we started pushing out and making as I was giving it to friends and family as we'll call it homemade moonshine. And then started taking it to every year we were going to NASCAR. And so, kind of fit the group. And so I knew I had a good audience. It's kind of sometimes you got to know your audience. So I had all my flavors I started mixing around and finding that people were really enjoying it. And so then I started giving it some customers. Well, happened to be my customers are my partners now. I give it to them for a Christmas party. And they said, time out, we need to get this to the public. Let's talk. So Phantom Five Distilling Company, the V stands for the five partners, Roman numeral five. And so from there, they loved it, their Christmas party. We started putting together a business plan. Each one of my partners we all have kind of roles that it was a marriage of five different people. So for example, like Mike Brookshire, we kind of call him the cattle. He kind of herds the cats and keeps everybody going. And then Monty Atkinson and Jim Stuck both are owners of multiple companies. And so they know how to make a company run. Chris Groves and myself we'll call it the ideal people that come up with the products. Chris helps fine tune the process. He's actually an engineer that I sell to. So our day jobs molded over into our night passion. And from there, we created Phantom Five Distilling Company.
That is a great story.
And
So
that's
how many years does that span from the time you first started making wine until today?
so from 2012 to I'd say 2017, I was making wines. And then in 2017, we got together as a group And we basically put some money together, wrote a business plan. I mean, we did it like you would, like you should, here's your target market. We started experiment with those target markets, and we kind of found that the ladies are a very untapped market as far as taste profile and then the alcohol. And, my day job, I always, that one of the companies I sell for is Rockwell Automation, and they have a tag saying that says, listen, think, solve. And I've always just come true to that, listen, think, solve. And these ladies were like, with moonshine, they did not care for that stigma or that type of deal. So we knew we couldn't call it a moonshine. So from there, we found out what they bought. And then we started building a business plan around that. And then we actually designed the proof of our alcohol to what they felt was pleasurable tasting. So it just didn't happen willy-nilly, kind of, we all thought about it very deeply and how we proceeded.
Yeah, very businesslike and very marketing oriented. Find out what
Mhm.
the customer wants and then give it to them. Well, I want to,
Yes.
I like wine. I'm interested. What made your wines so good originally?
Well, so one of the things, and that's going back to the, just having to tinker with stuff and make things work. One of the things that I found that I looked at was it seemed like that with the fermentation part of the wine, nobody left enough headspace for the air to work within the carboy. So I started using larger fermenters, and it just seemed to change the quality of the taste. It went from, for lack of better words, homemade to quality high-end wine. And those certain things that I always kind of go back to what my grandmother said, use the very best ingredients you can, and your meal will be the best. And so we've kind of took that into the phantom realm too. We don't buy, it's kind of funny, there's so many types of sugars, and pure cane sugar tastes different than beet sugar. And so you want to stick with the highest quality ingredients you can. So that's where we do that.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so, yeah,
So,
sitting at grandma's table, that's always the best food,
absolutely is. I miss that, to tell you the truth. Although
Yeah,
my wife and my mother-in-law are great cooks. Nobody's better than grandma, right?
right. And I watched her vigilantly my whole life. So, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, your products. Everything kind of, hinges around that. You can have the best promotion in the world, but if your products aren't any good, nobody's going to buy them, right? But you have great products. Talk a little bit about them specifically.
Okay. Well, so, like everything, it's got to have a good base. So when we started doing with the apple ferment and the design of the equipment that we designed to make this process, we had to achieve a higher proof. So our main product that everything is derived from is, we call it Venom, and it's 190 proof alcohol. But to achieve 190 proof, when you achieve 190 proof, that allows you to be what they call in the neutral spirits realm, which is your vodkas. So most vodkas are made from potatoes and grains and fruits and things. And our apple-based vodka is derived from the venom. So once you achieve the 190 proof, we're able to proof that down to 80. And then from there, we kind of go back to creating something that's a little different. How do we improve on this? So everybody was doing an active charcoal filtering. If you look at all the vodka people, and with active charcoal filtering, that's just gravity going through charcoal. Well, some of the things that I've learned with the wines and things like that, sometimes multiple runs or processes through that can help do that. So what we did was we created an active charcoal filter machine. My wife thinks I make up all these names, but it's called the Vodkinator 5000. And so with that Vodkinator 5000, we basically run the vodka through there probably over 200 times over like a 2-hour period. And it just polishes and filters that vodka to, I don't know what the right word to say is, but to a clearness and a crispness and a clarity that's almost unmatched. It really is a unique vodka. And as a matter of fact, we thought we would dip our toes in the competition world. And back in February, we entered our vodka in the Denver International Spirits Competition. And this is against all the big boys, and we won a silver medal. So
That's
we're pretty,
impressive.
pretty pleased with that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is vodka all that you offer?
No. So then from there, that was not our true product we were going after. But what we ended up doing is that everything that falls below the 190, 180, 160, they call it like a low brandy. So we end up being into the made from apple brandy. But in true TTB spirit, it's not actually a brandy, apple brandy, because if you, by their law or their rules, it would be need to be aged in a barrel for 2 years. Ours comes right off the bat off the stills, and we put it into carboys, and it is classified as a distilled specialty spirits. So the federal government really doesn't know where to put us, so they put us in this category called distilled specialty spirits. So that kind of gets it hard to explain when we get into our flavored ones, and everybody goes, well, is this a brandy, is it a vodka? Yes, yes, and no. So it's not a vodka, it's not really a brandy, it's a distilled specialty spirits.
It's a phantom
But
spirit.
the federal, yeah. But then the labeling people make us put made from apple brandy on the label because they don't have a clear classification when you go down an aisle of where to put us. So
Interesting.
that's
Interesting.
so then from there, kind of our process, where it kind of gets a little unique. So we have actually put controls from our day jobs with our automation and engineering expertise on these stills. So they're controlled, the temperature loops and the process loops on the temperature profiles and all the different pressures and flows that we have monitoring. We're able to dial in a taste, and we actually do something different too. Is a lot of people, when they're coming off the stills, all their alcohol goes into one large container, like a 275-gallon stainless tote. We've chosen to take and put ours into 6.5-gallon carboys, and we segregate our alcohol. We found out within that hearts of the alcohol, the heads and tails you don't use, but in the hearts, we found 3 flavor profiles. And with those flavor taste profiles, we'll call it the first flavor is like the icing on the cake. And so that one there is our most crisp and clean. So we put it in some of our lighter flavors, which would be like our watermelon, our lemon, our lake time addiction. And then the middle one, we put that in some of our lighter note type flavors. And that's kind of like maybe your cran raz and a few of the others. And then the last part has kind of the spice notes to it. So we tend to put that into our butterscotch, our oatmeal cookie, our spirited apple orchard, some of our flavors that have more flavor robustness. So then we take those alcohols that we've segregated and put them into a blending process, and then add our natural fruit juices and additives that we do that are probably some of the best quality product, ingredients, like we said, we've strived to do to put into our product.
How many SKUs do you produce?
So right now we have 12 flavored blended, and then we have Venom, vodka, and White Fog. So we have 15 SKUs. And then I'm wrong there. Things are happening at fast pace all the time, it seems like.
Sure.
So we've added one other thing, and this is a whole nother process. We've added a new product called pecan wood. Pecan wood is, we'll say, like a faux bourbon. So if like a bourbon is aged in an oak barrel,
Mm-hmm.
we've created a process where we use pecan wood chips and we run it through a process. And within 24 hours, we have a aged wood blended whiskey. And it's really, I think, at the classification, I can't even say whiskey. It's an aged brandy, for a lack of better words, but it's not aged in a barrel. So it's another thing that we've created that doesn't follow the federal government guidelines on where it should be placed. But yeah, we'll call it an artfully aged brandy.
Well, it sounds like everything that you're doing is completely unique to you guys.
That's what we try to do, try to make it a little unique, something different that nobody's had. And it seemed to be working. I hope this new process that we've launched takes off. We're going to hit all the different woods. Hopefully we've got the pecan wood. We'll probably do an apple wood, a maple wood, and just kind of go down all the profiles, and then take, like you would do. I don't know if you use like smokers or pellet smokers, but a lot of the pellet smokers have a competition blend. So I'll blend all those flavors together and come up with a competition blend brandy. So
That's
there's
awesome.
those are some of the things in the works.
So where do all these ideas come from?
Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and things happen. Sometimes it's collaboration from guys. You know, we had a whiskey tasting event one time, and they invited all of the bourbon connoisseurs. Everybody brought their favorite stuff, and we're trying to figure out how to play in that market, but not just be me too. So it just come up, why not take, everybody likes our alcohol, figure out a process to do that. And so sometimes it's a team, sometimes it's, the flavors, something that, go back to when we start talking about all of our flavors, each one of those has a unique story and where they come from and how we developed them.
So I'm sitting here thinking
You know,
about how you guys put this together, took a business approach to it. I know you have probably pro formas and projections. As you reflect back upon the last, 5, 6, 7 years, how has performance married with your projections?
the first 3 or 4 years has been not even to expect what happened with it. It's really taken off and it's been well received. If you go out there in the whiskey type era, I think our old fashioned oat milk cookies making a name for itself. It really has become popular. We just launched one back in November called Autumn Spice. And kind of funny story about that one. We were trying to create the pumpkin spice, for the season, trying to make a seasonal one. And we just had so many problems with the pumpkin. We threw that to the side and we happened to taste the batch, the seasoning. And we were like, let's just call it autumn spice and throw the pumpkin away. So things like that happen. So it wasn't really planned. It just kind of happened that way. But when you taste something and it's good and everybody really, that's kind of, we always try to get liquor to the lips first to get a true sense of the taste, what people think of each flavor, test market it on people.
Yeah.
I've got some setting that we've been testing, and we got one called that we hope to get launched sometime. It's basically off after, and it kind of goes back to grandma again. Her favorite candy was the turtles. So that's chocolate pecan caramel. And so I created one that way. And I think it's going to be one of those ones that would be very unique and might be off the charts, but we just, things come to us.
That's cool. So I've got to think right now, there are people that are listening to the podcast that are getting very, very thirsty. And if they've heard something that they think they might want to go buy and try, where would they find the Phantom 5 spirits?
Well, right now we have a website, phantomv.com. We're kind of going through some transitions with it. We have a store locator. Right now, that portion of the store locator is down, but hope to get that back up and running. And what it does is it locates the closest, either liquor store, grocery store closest to you by putting in your city, state, a zip or that. Then from there, we also have on Phantom V, we have a recipe book that we've created, and we're always adding to it. And if anybody has suggestions, we're glad to take any recipes anybody wants to help provide that they've created with our stuff. I can go down those flavors and tell you some of the creations, and it's been really interesting on that side of it. We've even had some social media influencers jump on the bandwagon and take our stuff and mix it with different things, and they're posting. So that's been somewhat interesting to see how people use it.
Oh, yeah, I got to check some of that out. So you said earlier that you're in 3 states right now, Missouri and what other 2?
Kansas, and we just started Iowa, and we're hoping to expand into multiple states.
Huh.
Distribution is the key to this business. It's just very hard so many people are carrying so many lines, and it's hard to not get lost in the amount of SKUs that they have to look at.
Absolutely. It is competitive and everybody wants shelf space and everybody's only got so much time to sell the product. So if I'm hearing and understanding correctly, they can buy it directly from you at
Yes, in Warrensburg.
in Warrensburg. They can buy
Yes.
it at retail outlets, grocery stores, liquor stores around the 3 states area, and you're looking to expand into more. So you have to work through liquor distributors to get there.
Yes.
Gotcha. And
And
okay.
each state has its own laws and regulations. So it's like starting over every time you go into a state.
Yeah. So which state do you think is next?
We've got multiple states reaching out to us. Oklahoma and Arkansas are both on the list. It's just finding that right distributor that is willing to take you on. We've got people in Nebraska begging for us. Multiple states seem it's not uncommon. I get an email weekly of either California, Hawaii, upstate New York, Delaware. I mean, it's just Florida. Everybody is wanting it. And if there was an easier way to get it out, we would, but it's just the laws kind of dictate how that happens.
Well, that's got to be very gratifying to you and your partners to have interests from all over the country.
Yes. It's, the customers it's one of those things they'll buy a bottle and they have family here in Missouri and then they take it to another state to a Christmas party or something. And then it's like instant emails. How do we get this?
So you got a great product. You're working through the distribution channels to get it to as many people as you possibly can. And of course, people are hearing about it through friends and family and maybe a social media influencer. How else are
Mhm.
you telling the story? How are you getting that story about Phantom 5 out there? And is it Phantom 5 or Phantom V?
Phantom 5.
Phantom
So
5.
the
So
aluminum will five.
how are you telling the Phantom 5 story? And where are you telling it?
That's been a tough one, right now. Facebook, social media, Instagram, those are probably been our best means of ways to get it out there, trying to increase followers. We try to doing events is getting harder and harder just because, all five of us partners have day jobs. And then, the amazing thing about this all went through, we started up a business during COVID. And so getting that through that and to being where we are right now, we feel pretty fortunate because the customers drove the sales for us because they, told a friend, and now they've got more friends and because they introduced it. But it's just one of those things that we need to probably figure out the next step as
And
far as
is
marketing, promotion, sales, all that.
and the capacity will take care of itself.
Yeah, so we set ourselves up. We've got our facility designed. So one of the stories I probably skipped on that the five partners, we used to bottle every Wednesday night and we would do 400 bottles and thought that was a lot. And so we had to set ourselves up because we knew the five of us couldn't bottle every Wednesday night from here on out. And so when we built a new distillery, when we were designing it, we designed for the future. Right now, we're running 1 to 2 of the stills. We have 4 500s plus 100-gallon still. We have room for multiple fermentation. So we've got the capacity for that. And then we set ourselves up. We, being automation people and electrical engineers, we purchased equipment and put it together. And we have a bottling line that can produce 2,000 bottles an hour or 16,000 a shift if you were to do 8 hours and you could feed it with that much product.
Are you doing all this from your facility east of Warrensburg?
Yes, that's one thing too that I will say that most people think that sometimes I've heard they'll walk in and, oh, that's all for show. That doesn't work. No, every bit of that is made in Warrensburg. There's not one part that is of a Phantom 5 Distilling Company alcohol that is not made in Warrensburg, Missouri. We have two distillers and we've got the warehouse space and we can handle the production. So yeah, it's all right there.
So, folks, when you're out driving down Highway 50 and you want to stop in and sample some great flavors and check out the distillery process, maybe even grab a steak while you're there. How did the partnership with Colton's come to be?
Well, when we first started out, we were leasing a building basically southeast of Warrensburg on a roundabout and small little warehouse. And when we thought that this might take off and the sales are going, we actually decided to design a distillery and design maybe like a event center on the end of it. And one of the things we were thinking of is that we could have it to where it had a full-blown kitchen so that if, say, somebody chef wanted to lease it or rent it or what have you, they could do that. Well, as we were designing it, we were like, who better to call than one of our first customers that took on Phantom as a franchise? And we said, hey, we got with guys at Colton's, Ben and Phil, and said, we're looking at building a distillery, but we'd like to design a kitchen and, area there. And we want to make sure we're designing it right. So as the conversations got along, they caught us off guard and they go, what about us? And so we were like, what about you guys? And then from there, the meetings started happening. The designs started going down to their corporate because this is not like any other Colton's. It's got an outdoor area. It's got upstairs event area that people rent for everything from weddings to birthday parties to retirement things. And so it was a different beast than they were used to handling, but they took it on and it's been a great partnership. The part about we always hope that someday we'll get to the level where we're able to do tours and, grow the business and have more employees. And it's just kind of one of those things that it doesn't, some certain parts don't make financial sense right now, but we'll get there
I bet you
as
do.
far as
Well,
we're hoping to.
yeah. Well, you've got great vision. Even to get to where you are today has taken a lot. And, I think looking from the outside, it's been very impressive what you've done in what I think is a relatively short amount of time. And I think
Yeah.
the future looks very bright for you. And I do want to tell you, I think your facility is impressive. It's awesome. They could just get the train to stop right outside your door where people can
Yeah.
get off and on and go their way. I think that would be even better. You have to work on Missouri Pacific for that.
Yeah.
But there is a story to that spot, right? Tell that story.
Yes. So back in 1904, the history is that, everybody from Kansas, Oklahoma were jumping on trains and they were going to the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. And so what happened was that this location where the distillery is actually part of history, where it was the World's Fair 1904 World's Fair train wreck, and 31 people passed away in that head-on train wreck right there. And so we didn't want to lose that. One of my partners, Mike Brookshire, his mom and him are both real history buffs on the area, and they actually live very close to there. So having him as a resource that let us find all of the history on this has been really good. And so basically what happened there, they call it Dead Man's Curve. And what happened was one train got released from, they have stops where they would start and stop, and they would put another train on. And then they would pull over to these side rails. And as the one train go by, back then they didn't have radios or anything, so that they couldn't really communicate what was going on. Well, they put on a freight train and it went by, and they counted that as the passenger train. And so then what happened was, as they passed from Warrensburg and coming back the opposite way from Sedalia, Namnoster, they basically collided head on as one was coming up and the other was on the lower part of the curve. They couldn't see each other. And as they had a head on collision right there and Dead Man's Curve by the distillery. So what we've done is we took the news articles from the Warrensburg, the Sedalia, and the Namnoster, and we wrote a thing as you walk in the distillery called the Phantom News. And so it combined all three stories. So you got a full effect of what happened. And then we actually reached out to the St. Louis Historical Society and got the rights to use the artwork, and we put that around the distillery. So there's actual photos inside the Colton's part and up into the other part into the Phantom Lounge, where a lot of the portraits are actually from the World's Fair, showing the architecture and everything that was built back then. That was like $50 million spent, and today's money, that would be probably 50 trillion. It was amazing. And they tore it down like 9 months later, So, and if you see the architecture and the photos and the stuff in these pictures, goes back to my day job when I was going through all 6,332 of those photos that they allowed us to look at. Broderick Bascom here in Sedalia, Missouri was first St. Joseph, and they were displaying their wire rope in the World's Fair. So Heinz Ketchup, Harley Davidson, just all of those people. It was a mecca of these companies, large companies, showing their wares. So it was quite interesting. You can go on and on, but we've got a book for sale. One of the professors at UCM wrote it that says there will be a wreck, and it kind of tells the story better than what I do. And then, like I said, we created the Phantom News, and then all the artwork, trying to preserve what part of that we can. We'd like to do a lot more. And then on top of that, that property we purchased, we found out some more history. In 1883, the May Schoolhouse is up on the top hill there, and so we're going to try to preserve that foundation and everything for that. So a little bit of history there at that location.
That is very cool. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. Well, I'm always excited to share stories from rural America. I mean, you guys are creating and building a business, essentially out in the country, out in the middle of
Yep.
Missouri, and I think it's something you could be very proud of. And so, that's kind of what our podcast is all about. And, as an advertising agency, that's where we focus our time. But, rural America means different things to different people. We have found that out. What does rural America
Mhm.
mean to you?
Well, I would say that rural America also, it means a lot because, like, one of the things that we tried to do was we tried to do everything made in Missouri that we could possibly do, and or other states that we can. So one of the things that everything that we've purchased, our stills were made in Doniphan, Missouri. All the stainless steel tables that we've used, those come from like Duke Manufacturing type product from Sedalia, Missouri. Our totes we use come from Chillicothe, Missouri, up at IBC. There's just everything that we tried to do within this, we tried to do within Missouri. And those are rural communities that are trying to survive in this economic world we live in. And so what can we do? I'm in that market daily with my daily job. So it just made sense. And so that's kind of what rural America to me.
Interesting. Well, I think about Doniphan down in the Ozark Hills. It would make sense there'd be
Mm-hmm.
stills down there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The turn off directions was the three mailboxes was one turn left at the big blue mailbox. So yeah, it's
That's
rural.
rural America right there. Hey,
Yeah.
Mike, I have really enjoyed visiting with you and hearing the Phantom 5 story. I think it's awesome. I know you guys are going to do great. What else would you like to share with our audience today that you think they might find interesting?
I think we kind of touched on most of those. I think probably the part I didn't touch on that I kind of really, if you look at every one of our bottles, there's a story on the back of the bottle and they mean something. So if you read those stories, it may inspire you. It may let you know what that alcohol tastes like. And it's just, that's kind of, we're trying to make all of it special. So that's, we're trying to do the best product, the best we can. And that's probably what I would say.
I've got one more question for you as the distiller. If
Mm-hmm.
somebody was going to try one flavor just to try it, which would it be?
Hands down, I would say old fashioned oatmeal cookie is, we sell it 10 to 1, probably. That is, it is probably our most unique. They just don't understand how we get that oat milk shoved in that bottle, the little elves that are pushing them in. It's got a flavor profile that's unmatched. And then Autumn Spice, Lake Time Addiction. Lake Time Addiction's got a story to it. That's where we took multiple of our flavors and combined them. And then where it come up with its name. There's a band running around here in Sedalia, Missouri called Dirt Road Addiction. They wrote a song about lake time, spending too much money down at the Lake of the Ozarks. And it kind of felt like the two were a marriage. So we combined the two and we kind of helped sponsor them a little bit. And the drink kind of makes sense.
Great idea. And do you
Yeah.
recommend that people drink it chilled or over ice, or how do you recommend it?
I really feel that if you chill Phantom and all through all any of our flavors, the flavor profile comes across so much better chilled. A lot of people will drink most of it straight, but there's so many things that you can do with. If you, I always kind of joke around, you almost need our whole rainbow flavor of stuff stocked in your bar because you can make about any drink you want to. It's there's quite a flavor profile there. Each one of them has something unique. Our spirited apple orchard, one of my partners says that it's like a Hallmark moment. You should be sitting around a campfire drinking that with your sweetie. So
I love it. I love it. Hey, Mike, thanks for being with us. I really enjoyed visiting with you today.
Thank you.
Folks, thanks for listening to Outdrive. I hope you've enjoyed our visit today with Mike Hammerly with Phantom 5. Come back again next week, and I'll take you down the roads of rural America, where it's heaven on earth.
Thanks for taking a ride with us on Outdrive. This episode is complete, so head on over to ecallis.com for more insight you can apply to help drive your business growth. And be sure to sign up for our free monthly e-letter, Outthink, for even more helpful content about marketing to rural America. Have a great day and keep on driving.